So we actually did well in terms of with the Stewartville team.
Yes.
With locating different players from what do you say, every squatty within
Yes.
the area that we in. Yeah. Hey Simbantra, if you're listening, hi Baba. You must have for opportunity. You must understand, if you get scouted by Fomosono, it's something major. Major. But I want to talk about how was it in terms of challenges back then, in terms of trying to develop these players, in terms of growing, letting them grow, not only on the football field. We look around, and a lot of times people talk about you can have all the talent, but it doesn't. It's invalid if your discipline is out of place.
Yeah. In Stewartsville, I was the boss.
Yeah.
In Stewartsville, I was the boss.
Yeah.
And I would say that I had two players.
Yes.
I don't want to mention them by name, but they tried me out, because what we would do first of all is training was on time.
Okay.
You had to be on time for training, and also you find that I was in contact with your school as well. So there was contact with the school, there was contact with the parents, there was contact with, of course, these players came from different teams, so there was also contact with your coaches as well, with the teams that you came from. So we really ran a tight ship, if I can say, and I was the trainer.
Yes.
Nowadays you find that teams have a technical coach, they have a goalkeeper coach, a backline, midfield, so everything has gone very technical and tactical.
Yeah.
So you find that, can you imagine all those coaches in me? I was the only coach of the team.
Yes.
And of course there was assistants, but they were mainly kit managers.
Yes.
And that I was also the transport.
Yeah.
And let me tell you what the transport was. The transport was my Honda Ballard. Green Honda Ballard.
Yes.
4-seater, which we turned into, I'm scared to say, but we turned it into an 8-seater. Don't tell my wife. We turned it into an 8-seater.
Yeah.
And what I had to do was transport the whole team.
Yes.
From Stewartsville to Ikopo. So if we were playing at 11 o'clock, I would start from 5, taking the first batch of players to Ikopo, then come back with my Honda Ballard, pick up the second load, take them up. So I had to do 3 loads up and 3 loads back after the game.
Yes.
So you find that that's how we started. So resources were very thin. And if I did, for example, get maybe a friend that had a van, or those days they had, the venture.
Yes.
Yeah, they had the ventures. So what would happen is that if a friend borrowed me a venture, it would make life easier.
Yeah.
And of course, there was a friend of mine, Neil Ogle, who of course has now passed on, but he used to borrow me his van. But he lived, I would say, almost about from here to the turnoff on the tar road would be about 5, 6, 10 k's, and then about 15 k's of dirt road to get to him, and then leave the Honda Ballard there, pick up the van, and then come all the way back with the van, pick up the players, go and play. After that, come back, drop the players off, go back on all these kilometers for my vehicle.
Yeah.
So either way, it was very stressful.
Yeah.
And the resources were quite far spread and thin.
Yeah.
In terms of finances as well, I financed the team.
Yeah.
There was no one else that financed the team until in our second season. We were actually, because of how well the team did in the first season, we actually received a sponsorship, a wonderful sponsorship at that time by Redmond's Butchery.
Okay.
And Theo Redmond then came on board, and of course bought kit for the camps, and that we would camp over in Ikopo at one of his houses, and all the transport costs and everything he would cover. But that was a beautiful time. But before that, it was Mawanda Ballard and Neil Ogle's van and his venture.
Wow. And I think I'm sure a lot of the guys that you coached back then really appreciated what you've done. Now, fast forward, because you spoke about not having proper support. Okay, we look at in terms of how was the infrastructure back then. In terms of the places where you were training the players.
You know, I remember very clearly one day while we were playing on the field, one of the players was slide tackled, and when he woke up from the tackle, the whole grounds at that time, it wasn't a stadium, the whole grounds burst into laughter, because what had happened was that he had actually slid and went onto cow dung. And his whole left side was full of cow dung. So when he got up, his whole left side was full of cow dung. So we were sharing the field at that time, which were, as I said to you, it was Matubula's field.
Yes.
Mr. Lister's field, just across the road from the shopping center. And of course, it was very uneven. First off, you're kicking up. Second off, you're kicking down. So you find the field was very uneven. There was electricity lines going over the field. Also, cows were grazing there. They would use it during a certain season as grazing land. So you find that we're sharing it with cows, with, as I said, the electricity lines that were going through. And like I'm saying, a lot of what we did was out of our pockets. For example, there was no proper soccer posts or anything. We had to go into the bush, cut poles, and make sure that those poles were put up. We had to cut the grass. Sometimes you find that Mr. Lister helped us just by cutting the grass. And but without that help, we did everything ourselves. And like I'm saying, it was very uneven. There were tufts of grass here and there. And also we had to mark the ground ourselves. So we used to mark it with lime. And so in terms of support and that, a lot of all that actually came from from us, and just the passion for football. And
my most concern is the fact that there were you saying that municipality wasn't helping in terms of maintenance of grounds back then. Let's move, as I said, fast forward to today. We see that still what was happening back then is still happening now. And how do we say that we want to develop? Because what is it that will bring scouts to our area? Because I can go into the suburb place and there's a tournament that will be taking place. I can go into Umlazi, I can go into Imatateni, I can go into Tipkloof or wherever these certain other so-called townships or urban areas. And then you get Emakai, these rural places. Do you think players that want to find life in football and becomes difficult because finance is not there? Finance is not there. How is it that you want to have kind of a tournament here and then you don't quite as well get players? Okay, there's a certain player that you've coached. He had to go out of the place where he was for him to be recognized.
Yes.
And that is quite sad. It's quite sad because you speak about the number of places or players that played that could have made it.